I just wanna be happy, happy tonight.
Welcome to the channel. My name is Priscilla. In today's video, I will be reacting to my March flight attendant schedule, y'all. I know you all are loving these videos and I feel like you've been enjoying them because I am able to share like nitty-gritty detailed information on what to expect, especially if you're trying to become a flight attendant or you've heard people talk about their schedule. So that's why I try to be as detailed as possible, just so you all can have a realistic perspective of what I bid for. And even if you are in the industry, but you're at a different base, at least you can see the things that I'm getting. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts on today's video in the comment section below. Alright, so let's slide right into it. In today's video, I will be talking about what I bid for per usual, and then also the bids that I received or were granted to me, and then the changes that I've made so far, and my final thoughts. Let's jump right into it. What did I bid for? As usual, I start off with my days off. My days off are very important to me, especially now because I'm trying to get to the point where I build a routine about how I fly and the days that I fly. So that's the whole idea. So the days off that I bid for was Wednesday to Saturday. So what I told the system was that regardless of what trips you give me, please do not schedule me on trips that fall within Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So the plan was to work 3 days out of every week and get 4 days off. The next thing that I bid for was to avoid flight lead. By default, I avoid flight lead. Like I said, I'm not against it. I've done it. It was cool. And me being the person that likes to show up to work, fly under the radar, and just mind my business, being flight lead is perfect. The next thing that I avoid is flying through Atlanta. I do want to talk about this because I was having a discussion with someone and they actually asked me a question that prompted me to think that there's a need for me to explain this. So when I say avoid flight through Atlanta, it means I don't want to touch the airport at all. So you can avoid the layover as Atlanta, because there are people that would like to fly in and out of Atlanta but do not want to lay over, as in go to have any sort of layover in Atlanta, right? When I say fly through Atlanta, I'm specifically saying that I don't want to go to the airport at all. The next thing that I also bid for was my schedule value. I started this in I think February, where I bid for a very low schedule value because at this point I want to be scheduled the minimum amount of time as possible so that I can pick up whenever I want to, or try and focus more on the content creation aspect of what I do, because that was the whole plan, but I fell ill and then I went off track and now I'm trying to get back on track. The other thing is I bid for high credit trips. I bid for high credit 3-day trips, which are 19 hours or more, and then also I bid for high credit 2-day trips, which are 14 hours or more, and then the other high credit trips that I bid for were 1-day trips, which were 10 hours or more. Mine are high because of the base that I am, but I just put them in generically. If I get it, fine. If not, it doesn't matter. What I really care about is in high credit 3-day trips, because if you're gonna give me a 3-day trip, I'm hoping that it's more than 19 hours. So anything less than 19, I'm not interested. The other thing I also bid for was to avoid domestic trips. Once again, I put that in because our international trips are 20 hours or more, so it's just a way to guarantee and to butter up that. But I know I can't hold only international trips, but you never know. One of these days it might come through for me, okay? But for now, I don't hold it. It's never granted. No hard feelings. It doesn't hurt me to put it in anyway. And then the last thing that I bid for were specific rotations. So what I did was I reviewed our bid package and then I saw certain rotations that I potentially wanted, and then I went in to ask for those specific rotations. Obviously, I didn't get any. However, like I always say, it doesn't hurt to try, okay? So that's where we are with that. So now that I've spoken about what I bid for, let's go ahead and talk about what I received, what I was granted. I was granted the days off that I wanted. All the trips that I received, or the 8 days or the reserve that I received, did not fall on Wednesday to Saturday. The other thing that was granted was flight lead. The trips that I got assigned, I was not flight lead in any of them, so that's awesome. I was also granted avoid flying through Atlanta. None of my trips had Atlanta. Schedule value, I was granted as well because my trips were the total hourly, which I'm going to talk about, was below 45 hours. In terms of the high credit 3-day trips and the 2-day trips and the 1-day trips, I was granted the 3-day trip and the 2-day trips, but not the 1-day trips, because I did get assigned 1-day trips and they were not the credit hours that I wanted. So that's why that was not granted. And then the specific rotations also, I wasn't granted those things. The trips that I got were domestic trips, so obviously avoid domestic trips was not granted as well. But beyond that, what trips did I receive? When schedules were released on the 16th of February, this was my schedule. I got a layover on Sunday to Monday. So layovers it's considered it a one-day trip even though it overlaps over 2 days. Because it starts late at night into the following morning, on your schedule, it looks like a 2-day, or if you ask me, it is a 2-day, because once my trip touches the next day, I count it as a 2-day, okay? But for scheduling purposes, it's a 1-day trip. And I got a layover, which was worth 6 hours and 8 minutes. So a layover, essentially, you have a layover, but it's a very short layover. Our minimum rest is 12 hours. However, depending on what scheduling permits, it can go as low as 10 hours. That's an argument for another day. But layovers gives you like lower than that. So with my layover, what I got was actually a good one in the eyes of the people that love layovers. The report time was good, the release time was good, and the layover hour was 7 hours. It was almost 8 hours. So mine was a pretty good one. And then the second week, I had reserve, which was Sunday to Tuesday, which is still well within the days that I wanted to work, which was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Our reserves is worth 14 hours and 15 minutes. So I got a trip the first week of March. Second week, I got reserve. Third week, I didn't have anything assigned. And then the fourth week, I had a reserve assigned. And then I had another 1-day trip. It was actually a really good 1-day trip. I think it was an MSB turn or an Anchorage turn. I think it was a red-eye Anchorage turn, which is a really good one, especially if you have kids. You leave at night, you come back in the morning, and there's no layovers, so it's like you're working overnight, essentially. I just didn't keep it because in March, I want to do something different, which is what I'm going to show you all. So this is all I received, y'all. The bid period for March was between March 2nd to March 31st. So even though you see March 1st here, it doesn't count as it's not even part of my days off because that was part of February. So this is where I'm sitting. This is what I was scheduled. I wanted 45 hours in schedule value in terms of hours, and I got 42 hours and 8 minutes. When I say 45 schedule value, there's always a variance, and I think the variance from March was 7 hours or 6 hours. So what that means is that if I'm asking for 45 hours, the highest I can be potentially scheduled for is 45 plus 6 or 7, whatever the variance is, or 45 minus 6 or 7 hours. So that's the difference. So what I got was well within that number as well. So that was granted. And then upon this schedule being released, I had 21 days off, y'all. So out of the days that I got scheduled to work in between my reserve and the trips that I got 21 days off. In March, like I was saying earlier, I wanted to do something different. This month or in March, I want to work only 2-day trips to see how much I can make and to see how efficient it would be for me. Because these days, what I've been noticing is that when I do 3-day trips, the credits are good and all. It's high, it's good, it's efficient for the most part. The 3 days that I work, because the layovers are just at the minimum, and then the sits are short, so I'm not wasting time at airports. Every single time that I have, I'm actually working and earning flight time pay, which is how I like my 3 days, because I'm already not getting paid 72 hours because I'm away for 3 days. But if I'm going to be working, then it should be as efficient as possible. But one thing I noticed is that by day 2, I'm ready to go home. Like, I'm not enjoying the 3rd day as much anymore. So I decided that, okay, let's try something different, you know? Let's try and see if we can work only 2 days in a month. Not only 2 days, but work only 2-day trips in a month to see if I'm gonna enjoy that and get a feel of that as well. So that's what I'm doing in March. As I've always said, our schedules change every single month, y'all. Like, a flight attendant schedule is not fixed. It changes every month, so whatever you have going on every month, you can change or switch around things on your schedule to make it suit your needs for that month. And that's the perk or the flex of this job. So what I did was that once schedules were released, I immediately posted all my trips. So the 1-day trip, the lean over that I got on the 3rd, and the 1-day trip that I got on the 31st, I posted them for drop, including my reserve. I posted everything for drop, and they were all picked up within minutes or seconds, because the trips that I got were not bad. There are people that love lean overs, and there are people that hate it. Like, it's either they hate it or they love it. That's how lean overs work. So I got rid of those two. So I ended up with only reserve on my trip, which was 6 days of work, and that's it. And I started picking up 2-day trips. The 2-day trips that I got this month actually were not the highest that I've seen. I've worked 2-day trips that were worth almost 16 hours, some that were 15 and some change. So I've seen better 2-day trips. However, even though I wanted to work 2-day trips, I wanted to work 2-day trips that only had 3 flights. So I wanted to work 2-day trips that had minimum 2 flights the first day, 1 flight the go home day or the last day. Like, I'm trying to choose the soft life these days, y'all. So this is where we are. I did get 1 2-day trip though that had like 3 flights the first day and 1 flight the last day. The only reason why I picked that up, I think, is the first 2-day trip on the 3rd, was because I worked it in February and it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. But my goal was to work 2-day trips that have 2 flights the first day, 1 flight the last day. That's it. And I was able to get majority of them to be that way. So on the 3rd of March, I picked up a 2-day trip to the 4th of March. And that 2-day trip is worth 13 hours and 15 minutes, which is almost 14 hours, and a monetary value of $571.50. So what I wanted to do was that I work a 2-day trip for 2 days, get 1 day off, and then work another 2 days, and then get 2 days off. So I wanted to work 4 days out of the week essentially, but with 1 day off in between, and then 2 days off at the end. I have another 2-day trip on the 6th to the 7th, which is 12 hours and 54 minutes at a monetary value of $523.31. Then I have my reserve, which is 14 hours and 15 minutes at a monetary value of $481.80. Then I have a reserve again for 14 hours and 15 minutes, and then it's $481.80 as well.
I wanted to also point out that if you would notice, even though my reserve is worth 14 hours and 15 minutes, the monetary value is still less than a 12-hour trip, which I have on the 6th to the 7th, for example. So what that means is that the amount of money we get paid on our layovers, although it's very small, like a $2 stipend per hour, it adds up because that pay essentially begins from the time you sign up for your trip until when you're released from that entire 2-day, 3-day, or 1-day trip.
Then I move on to the next week, which on the 20th and the 21st. Because of how my reserve was set up and everything, it changed things up a bit, but I picked up a 2-day trip, which was worth 13 hours and 43 minutes at a monetary value of $554.11. I picked up another 2-day trip on the 26th to the 27th, which was worth 12 hours and 14 minutes at a monetary value of $570.46. And then lastly, I picked up another 2-day trip. Part of it is going to be into April, and it's worth 13 hours and 26 minutes, and it's worth $538.87. So one thing you would notice is that I have a 2-day trip on the 26th to the 27th, which is worth 12 hours and 14 minutes. However, the monetary value is more, or it's close to 13-hour trip, or it's more than the other 2-day trip that I have on the 6th to the 7th, which is 12 hours and 54 minutes. This is where our layover pay comes in. So the reason why that 12 hours and 14-minute trip is worth a little bit more than the 12 hours and 54-minute trip, even though they're both 2 days, is because of where I'm going and the layover time that I have. So the layover time that I have for that 26th to the 27th trip is going to be international. That's why I get international pay for my layover, and the international layover pay is slightly higher than the domestic layover pay. So that's why that amount is higher. So when you're choosing your trip, this is why I always say you have to be very strategic when you're choosing your trip. That's why I always argue our pay is not cookie cut perfect, it's not direct, it's not straightforward. There are always some nuances here and there that makes a difference, and sometimes, or for the most part, works in your favor. So once again, the bid period is between March 2nd to March 31st. The total amount of hours that I'm sitting at right now. So after I got rid of the 2 trips that I got assigned, the 2 1-day trips that I got assigned, I picked up 5 2-day trips, which put me at the amount of hours that I will be working at 94 hours, 2 minutes. So for the month of March, as of right now, as I'm recording this video, this is what I'm projected to work. If I work all the trips on my board and I don't get used on my reserve days, this would be my total number of hours, because my reserve days are originally 28 hours altogether, the 6 days. But if I get 2 3-day trips that are worth 20 hours each, that 28 hours for 6 days will become 40 hours. But right now, all things being equal, if I stick to my reserve, I don't get used, and I work these trips, I would have worked 94 hours in 2 minutes. And the monetary value of these hours is sitting at $3,721.85 with 15 days off. So final thoughts, y'all. Any trip that I do pick up for the month of March would have to be a 2-day trip, unless if I'm swapping my reserve. Because when you're swapping reserve, you kind of don't really have a lot of power, in the sense that nobody wants reserve unless it's beneficial to them in one way or the other. And the other thing also is that typically if somebody wants to swap their trip for your reserve, it's usually not the best trip, and it might be a 3-day. So 3-day for 3-day, because I have 2 sets of 3 days for my reserve. So I might end up with 2 3-day trips if I end up swapping my reserve for trips. You have to be very strategic here when you're building your schedule, because even though potentially somebody might pick up my reserve, sometimes they pick it up last minute. And when they pick it up last minute, it might be hard for you to pick up a trip immediately, okay? So what I try to do now is that I give my reserve room, I give them space. So as you can see at the front hand, I have 2 days off before the start of my reserve on the 10th. And then on the back end, I have 3 days off at the end of the second set of reserve, which is the 16th as well. That way, even if somebody picks up my reserve and they pick it up on the 9th, I can still pick up a 3-day trip on the 11th if maybe I can't pick anything up on the 10th. But for now, I do plan on adding 1 additional 2-day trip and then swapping my reserves for trips. Moving forward, I will say that if you're a new flight attendant, take advantage of the schedule specialist that we do have. During training, the presentation on scheduling is whack. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it is too much information within a short period of time. Not that it didn't do a good job, it's just that the way our scheduling system works, you will not fully understand no matter how much somebody talks to you about it. The only way you get better and start to understand is with practice and you asking some questions as you move forward in the job. The reason is because whatever you get told or whatever is shared with you, you don't have any context. Like, you don't even understand what they're talking about. Our schedule is just different. It's built different. So it's like you have no context, so it's harder to understand. So do take advantage of your schedule specialist. And my one trick that I will say do is take one thing at a time. So when I first started, my goal were my days off. I didn't care about the layover. I didn't care about the type of trip that I had. My goal were my days off and the number of flights I worked in a day, because the number of flights I worked in a day impacted how I adapted to the job, because I did not feel comfortable working through more than 2 flights a day, being a new flight attendant and adjusting to flying. So that was my question. How do I ask for those things? Once I figured out that how to bid for those things, my days off, and then also the number of flights per day, I then moved on. But what people do is that immediately they get on the job, they want these days off, they want specific dates off, they want this weekend off, they want this layover, they want this start time, they want this report time, they want this release time, they want this, they want this, they want that. It's all good, because at the end of the day, you might as well ask for what you need. However, to a large extent, you also have to be realistic and strategic. Just be smart about what your needs are and figure out what's most important and work from there. Honestly, the biggest difference and one of the moments or the things that impacted my ability to bid for the things that I bid for. I'm not the best at bidding, but as a new person, I feel like I'm at the point where I know how to ask for the things that I want, is that I spoke to senior people. But what I did was I typed what I wanted and I took a screenshot of what I bid for, and I asked her to compare it to see that what I've bid in the system, does that translate into what I've typed or emailed to you about what I want. That's one of my final thoughts for this video, is that take advantage of your schedule specialist. They're there for you. They're here to assist you, and ask questions. You do learn from trial and error. So with the way the scheduling system is, once again, it's a beast on its own. It's a whole situation. Like, even till today, there's certain things that I don't understand. I learn new things every day. Try things out, because worst case scenario, the next month you can do something different. So whatever you get today or this month, it's not fixed. It's not the end all be all. You have another opportunity the following month to try something else. So sometimes you have to risk it all to see what the outcome is, and then you learn from there. Then the last thing also is, every month, whatever trips that were projected to work, we have a big package that has all the trips. What I'm trying to say is that as a new person, take advantage of your bid package. It's one of those things where I don't even remember it being mentioned when we were talking about scheduling, but it helps you because it allows you to see, it educates you on what kind of the trip credits that your base has. Because the big package will show you all the trips for the month coming. That would inform you in terms of the credits you bid for. So it gives you an idea of what kind of trips, the rotation builds and everything. So you can potentially bid for specific rotations, or just have a general idea of what kind of work we should be expecting in April. So take advantage of that as well. It actually shows you a lot of stuff. Like, it gives you really good information. You can see all that even before schedule is released, or even before you go into bid or request for your schedule. So that's the reason why I'm suggesting that as a new flight attendant, you start getting comfortable with accessing your bid package. When you start doing all these things, it sets up your foundation. Once you become more senior and you can hold and you're able to get the things that you want, you already know the resources you can tap into to ask for the things that you want. So do the groundwork now, and then once again, finally learn as you go. You make errors, you learn from them. That's how it is. So don't beat yourself up about it or be discouraged or anything. Thank you all for watching today's schedule reaction video. I have a full playlist in the description box below where I react to all my flight attendant schedule from when I got on the line, y'all, from the very beginning. Please check out the playlist. I also have a playlist in the description box below talking about flight attendant pay into detail. So do check out that playlist as well. If you just got your CJO know you got a training date assigned and you're on your way preparing for training, I do also have a full playlist in the description box below where I talk about my experience going through flight attendant training. Please check those out. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.